Hey guys, it's Heyde. Today I'm going to do a breakdown of one of my more recent cues called Nails for Breakfast, and alongside that I'm going to be reviewing Orange Tree's Evolution Texas Twang, which is the VST that primarily made up this cue. Having had the opportunity to write this cue using this instrument, I've got to say I was so blown away when I first got it. I couldn't believe how realistic the thing sounded, and then as I kind of unpacked it through writing this piece, it was just so cool to see all the different features that they've provided, from a ton of different tones, lots of effects pedals, multi-tracking, chord strums, just a ton of different features at a really great price point for what they have to offer. Before I jump into the cue itself, I just want to familiarize you guys with what the interface looks like and some of my favorite features from it. So when you open it up, you'll either have this window, and you see we've got play, strum, chords, tone, and setup. So under play, this is where you have all of the different articulations available for each tone. And if you needed to map them, you could select how to map them either through velocity, key switching, sustain pedal, and then here is the values that you could set. So you could say that this is only triggered when I strike from 0 to 60 in my velocity. Really cool thing about this interface is as you play the instrument, you'll notice it's giving you a visual display of where the notes would appear on the guitar strings. And I have no idea how they did that, because that is just such a cool feature. It seems to understand when you want a note to be a legato versus being able to play the notes and have them sustain out. And I just think that's such an incredible feature. So that just blew my mind. I thought that was such a cool feature. To access the different presets, if you want to check them out, you can click this camera icon here, and then there'll be a little drop down over here that has clean, crunchy, and distorted. And I'll talk about some of my favorite ones that I used in this cue in a bit. I didn't use strumming or chords in this piece, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, but if you want more details on what this is capable of, I recommend you check out Orange Tree's video. I'm going to be attaching that in a card and also in the description, but it's a very powerful interface that allows you to have chords based on either what you're playing or automatically recognize what chord you're playing through the notes that you've selected. Then we have the tone menu, which is kind of like an effects rack or pedal board. And then lastly, and I love this section, we have the setup. The setup is a really powerful interface. You can adjust where you want the pickups to be or the signal. And one of my favorite little tricks here, you can have multi-tracking. Typically, this is problematic with virtual instruments because virtual instruments are triggering oftentimes the same sample unless you have round robin. So because of that, if you try to do manual multi-tracking and duplicate this track and pan it left and right and play it at the same time, they're oftentimes going to be triggering the same sample, which is going to cause phasing issues. So you wouldn't hear the true double tracking, you would just hear the same track played twice with the same audio file. So they cleverly came up with their own built-in multi-tracking. So you'll hear the difference. This is single track. Now here's double tracking. You can hear how it's true double tracking, meaning they must have had different samples triggering at the same time. I'm not really sure how they did it, but it's awesome. You can even have triple tracking or quadruple tracking if you really want to max it out. You can choose how you want to affect the panning for separate audio outputs, and you can even choose the amount of humanization, meaning when it's at 100, you're going to have all the players be pretty inaccurate, which would give you a more human-like performance. Or you could put it at 0, and this is more mechanical. And doing it at 0 I don't recommend because you'll lose a lot of what makes multi-tracking sound realistic. They're so on that you actually lose that effect. So I wound up putting it around 50. So that's a basic overview of the interface. Again, I'm not going to get into too much more detail than that. I'm just going to jump into the song now, and I'm going to break it down section by section. We'll talk about which sounds I really liked and how I wound up coming up with the things I did. Okay, I'm going to start with that section. So you'll notice the first half of that section is just one audio file, and that's because I wanted everything to sound like it was coming through a record player. So what I did is I took this meat and potatoes tone, which is like one of my favorite ones from the set. I played this riff. And then I bounced it out, and I just ran it through a vinyl plugin that I have by Isotope, which I've always really liked. Once I had that, then I kind of cut that just to give it some dramatic effect, and we have this really distorted section. And this section is made up of 3 evolution tones, as well as Orange Tree's Cherry Bass, which is another great separate VST that I've really enjoyed using. So first we have the Jalopy Ride, which is double tracked like I talked about. And on some of those held notes, I'm also turning up the mod wheel just to give it some of that vibrato. Really nice and snarly. Then on the left, we have more spaghetti, a separate tone that I really liked. Kind of a more coney vibe. And then we have the meat and potatoes again now on the right. So all together, those sound like this. Really, really cool. And it's amazing how well they blend together too without doing, you'll see I hardly did any mixing, just a little bit of EQ to roll off some of the lows, but that's it. I mean, they just sounded so great out of the box. Then I blended that with the Cherry Bass. And I did bump up some of the highs on this just to make sure that it poked through enough in crappy speakers. So all together they sound like this. So cool, I love it. In the background of this whole section, I have a couple non-Orange Tree samples going on. I've got a hammered dulcimer, a palm muted piano, which is my own sampler instrument, and a banjo. And then obviously we have drums in the background. This is Modern Drummer. Okay, so next section. Now we bring on some of these solos where I wanted to feature some of these tones a little bit more. The first solo is the tone Not From Around Here. Kind of reminds me of Jimi Hendrix a little bit. Just has like a 70s vibe to me, something about it. And I basically just riffed. And I did the same thing with this other one called Grapevine. Really, really like that one. Just has a really nice kind of biting tone. So basically those play through, and I'll just play that so you get an idea of how that sounds. And then before we get to that section, I've also got this backing track here. It's another Orange Tree guitar. It's called Deep Ellum, double tracked. Much spacier preset of theirs. And all the effects that you're hearing are the built-in effects here under tone. They've got, it sounds like a delay going on. They've got a chorus, they've got a flanger, they got all sorts of presets, and it really, really adds to the sound. So that's it for that section. Then, like I said, we go back into another section which has the distorted tone and the bass, which I'll just play so you can hear that. Okay, now for that section, I wanted to get down to drop D, but Orange Tree's instruments only allow you to go to E. Once you get below that, they have a feature which allows you to repeat the previous note, so it helps for alt picking. If you had this, now I'm pressing D, but it's still striking the A, so I can quickly get like a tremolo effect, which is another really useful thing. But I wanted to get drop D, so to do that, I actually played the E in all of these instruments, and I used my pitch bend, held it down, and I played transposed. So I played an E, but I had the pitch bend holding down to D, which gave this sound. Which I just love. I'm just such a sucker for drop D, so that was that was really, really fun to write. So I have that section going through. Then we have the two instruments that were originally doing the solos. They're kind of giving this little background track, which sounds like this. So together again, it sounds like this. That does it for that section. And then in our final section of the piece, I wanted to showcase some of the palm mutes because that's just another sound I love. So this is the same meat and potatoes as from before, but now we've got the double track turned on and we also have the palm muting turned on. So you'll hear how that sounds here. Really, really nice sounding. So I have this meat and potatoes double tracked, and then I have this other tone called Are You Chicken? Which sounds like this. So I have these two playing together, which sounds like this. And I actually have them doubling against my own custom VST, the palm muted piano. So they're going. We also have that Deep Ellum DT, the one I was talking about from before. Kind of gives it a spacey vibe. And then later in the section, we introduce one more kind of experimental one. It's just harmonics. Very U2-ish. So they work it nicely to kind of create more atmosphere in the piece. And then we have a reprise of that previous riff, which started in the beginning, against the palm muted. So all together, with the bass and extra accompaniment, it sounds like this. And then a fade out. So again, the things that I just really love about this virtual instrument, I found it's just so fun to play. All of these sounds were straight out of the box. These are all presets that they provided, and they were so inspiring and had so much variety, I didn't feel any need to make anything else. I was just inspired by what was there. I was So pleased to see how little mixing they required. I was nervous that putting this many guitars in one track was going to require a lot of mixing so that they blended well and fit in together, and that really wasn't the case. I don't know if they were designed that way or just was luck, but they seem to work so well together. The legato sounds fantastic. I think they're extremely realistic sounding instruments. And the price point is great for what you get. Like I said, you get so many different instruments here. You get so many things to play with. All of these articulations, this mapping that they've provided, the visual display, which looks great, the strumming and chords, all of these tones, these built-in plugins, which sound fantastic in themselves, and these really customizable options for your setup. Picking the pickup, the signal. I mean, it's just, you can tell they went above and beyond with this VST to make sure it had everything you could possibly need. This is an awesome company. I highly recommend you check out this virtual instrument if you're in the market for an electric guitar VST. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions about the VST or about this piece, please just let me know in the comments section. Thanks for watching, and I will have more music up soon.